And this is called Take the 5-Day Test. And what we'd really like to call it is Experiment for 5 days to see what photo reading can really do for you on one book. Now, this is in your photo reading book, should you by chance lose this wonderful little purple sheet. And it's on page 76 and 77 in the chapter on rapid reading. It's called Take the 5-Day Test. One of the things that we'll talk about tomorrow are some of the testing protocols. In other words, what have people done to demonstrate that photo reading is working for them? This is a very sort of contained experiment that will actually be done by the time you take off for whatever part of the world you're heading to next. So the first one, are you lucky ladies and men tonight? Because you've already done it. So you don't have to worry about that at all. You've already prepared by stating your purpose for the book that you chose, and you've already photo read it. You're done for tonight. This is good. Lots of you think, sleep, sleep, sleep tonight. All right. Now, on day 2, however, what we're going to do is we're going to take that same identical book, and you are going to, again, prepare yourself. You're going to, in this case, preview, but one of those really short little previews of about 2 minutes, because then you're going to photo read it again and post view. So this time the post view comes in, and you'll have an opportunity to see what it's like to gather in the trigger words, to begin to create those kinds of questions that are really exciting for you to answer later on. And as it says, this basically is going to take you, none of these will take you more than 30 minutes. Day 3 of the photo reading retreat is, again, every one of them starts, prepare, photo read. Okay, so prepare and photo read. And then you're going to use the activation tool of super reading and dipping. And we're going to encourage you to super read and dip your book in, and it says, entire book in 30 minutes. Oh! Now, for some of you, that's not a problem. Let me see some of those great big, if you've got one like this, you may set a different goal for yourself, or you may just say, I'm going to go for it. Again, challenge by choice. You get to decide what you want to do in those 30 minutes. But see if you can get all the way through to the end. Less dipping, more super reading in some cases. Okay. Day 4, prepare and photo read again. Not a problem. And then you're going to have an opportunity, and I would encourage you to explore both super reading and dipping and the skittering. Because sometimes it's your own personal preference, but many, many times what happens is that it's really the author. Because some books are really easy to skitter, and some books are not. And at that point, I go to super reading and dipping. But you might want to explore both just to see which works for you. And again, on day 4, you're looking at your trigger words, you're formulating additional questions, you're going through all of that. And finally, day 5 comes, and you, once again, what are you going to do first? Prepare and photo read. You're getting this down. It is fantastic. All right. So again, a prepare and photo read. And this time, you might want to look at the table of contents and say, I really want to hone in on this particular section, this particular chapter. I need this particular information, and I'm going to go off and get it. And so then I'm super reading and dipping or skittering just those particular areas so that I'm going after that essence and building that base.
Is this built into the day's schedule each time?
Well, that's going to be my next point. All right. Now, you know what Cheryl just talked to you about in terms of finding references? It's not necessarily built into each and every day's schedule. When it is, we'll certainly let you know. But I would encourage you to start thinking about it as, when is the best time for me to do something like this? If I were going to have an extra half an hour with this book, and some days, Paul, some days we will have it on, right? Yes. Okay. But if it's not, think about, am I better off doing this from 6:30 to 7 before Qigong? Am I better taking a little part of my lunch hour? Am I better doing it after coaching sessions in the evening? My younger daughter and I ended up having, for example, I would usually be photo reading, because I'm an early morning person, I would start photo reading at about the time she was going to bed, and that's when she was photo reading as well. But we were doing it from opposite reasons, you know. Strange how that works. At any rate, at that point, you'll have spent over 2 hours with your book. And what you want to notice, again, nops it, notice it, own it, play with it, stay with it. So what you want to say is, now, is this level of detail enough for me? If not, you may want to repeat either day 4 or go after some other chapters as you would have done the day 5 experiment.
The 5-day photo reading challenge is where we take one book and spend a certain amount of time on it each day doing specific activities, including photo reading.
My doubts about the 5-day challenge are, will I basically come through on the other side with the information I want? Will the book that I'm going through be too challenging for me? So these are some of the issues that I'm going through currently. And even though I have these doubts, I still feel that I need to go through this process because it's part of the process that we need to, what should I say, I need to go through, because it's the old paradigm. It's the old reading model that is bringing all these things up for me. And I need to go past that so that next time I'm more able to actually cope with this. I've taken on this book, which, as I said, which is quite complex, but I'm feeling. Yesterday I was not feeling too good about it, but today I am, because I've photo-read it a few times and I feel more comfortable with it. And I think that process the actual 5-day challenge is a good process, because what it does is it allows me to notice, just try it. It's only experience anyway. Went quite well for me. When I was doing the 5-day challenge yesterday, the book didn't come alive for me because I found it hard to understand. But today I found certain aspects of it easy to understand because I photo-read it again with a more defined purpose, because that sort of guided my activation. So in that respect, the 5-day challenge went well, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's one as well.
I told my partner that I wanted a real challenge, so he picked a subject which I knew nothing about completely, and it was about social networks and how we evolve and things like that. And during the activation process, I found that I didn't really know anything, but at the end of it, very surprisingly, I came up with a fair overview of the stuff, and I thought that was quite an accomplishment, really.
Well, I feel more and more confident in the 5-day test. I like it because it helps building up self-confidence in the mastery of photo reading.
I've noticed that with the 24 hours of incubation, my mind seems to work better. It's almost as if it gels together, and the printed page actually looks different. With this 5-day challenge we've just done, where we get one book and we photo read it and we activate it across 5 days, the printed page is actually changing for me. I looked at it today, and it just almost as if I knew where everything was. And it was just the way it sort of looked out at me. It was different. It was clearer.
For the 5-day plan. I fully activated the book and mind mapped it. And that was mainly because when I photo read, I had a feeling that the information I needed was just in the middle section of the book. So I left out the first section and the last section, went to the middle, and there it was. And I checked back, and yeah, that was all I needed.
I started out with, boy, it was tough with having a book that was that difficult. But as I think about it, having a book that was that difficult to read and to be able to glean as much information as I did, and to be able to pass that along to Eric, whose book I was reading from Finland, and he said, "Wow, that's really a lot of information." But it's something that, using the whole photo reading system of multiple readings and preparing and doing the activations on several different levels, really allowed me to pull out more than I really reasonably could have with any other way of digging into the book. So it was tough and challenging, but it, I guess, had a good result for Eric and was interesting for me as well.
On the retreat, I think I've had there was this book that I activated for the 5-day challenge, which I chose a new book to activate today because I finished my old one. And I did this one, I mind mapped it in about 10-15 minutes, and it didn't seem to gel. So I went through it several times again over that 30-minute period, and I suddenly, at the end of it, I could talk about it. I can tell you what's in there now. I don't need the mind map, and that's it.
Imagine going through medical school, medical training, or law school, law training, and developing a real love-hate relationship with books. You know you need them, but you just can't stand to do them sometimes. Well, what we're talking about is opening up and engaging it in another way. And I think the most beautiful thing I heard from you just now is that idea of honesty, being really honest. I remember one woman who bought a book after the photo reading class, came home, sat down and previewed it one night. This was back in the olden days when we previewed for 4 minutes. She photo read it. And then the next night she was going to activate it. Well, the following day she'd preview the next one and photo read it, and so we'd leapfrog books, right? Every night you'd photo read one and you'd activate the other. Photo read the next one, activate the one from the day before. So every day you're doing 2 books in essence. And she had gone to the bookstore, bought a book for like $25 or something like that, got home, prepared, previewed, photo read it. The next day she picked up the book, she didn't want to activate it. She said, "Oh, great course. You know, here I spent all this money on a photo reading course. I've had a $25 book, and now I don't want to read." Yeah, really great investment this was. So she photo read, previewed and photo read the next book. The next day, she couldn't wait to activate it. And she absolutely inhaled that book, just consumed it immediately. And she called me up. She had tears in her voice, you know, how it just gets crackly like that. She said, "This was the first time in my life I gave myself permission. Here I am, I'm in my 60s. I finally gave myself permission to read for me. Not for some teacher somewhere, not for some boss who's telling me I have to read, but for me. And I decided I didn't want the book I bought. I don't have to read the books I have if I don't want to read them. You know that? That's the kind of freedom that we're talking about. Thank you all for doing the 5-day test. I mean, this is something which we encourage people to do. Would you encourage others to take this test for themselves? What? Yes. Okay, good. Because we want to know that we can spread this idea forward. So thanks all for coming up and giving us this information.
And you've already photo read it. You're done for tonight. This is good. Lots of you think, sleep, sleep, sleep tonight. All right. Now, on day 2, however, what we're going to do is we're going to take that same identical book, and you are going to, again, whatever part of the world you're heading to next. So the first one, are you lucky ladies and men tonight? Because you've already done it. So you don't have to worry about that at all. You've already prepared, by stating your purpose for the book that you chose. In your photo reading book, should you by chance lose this wonderful little purple sheet, and it's on page 76 and 77 in the chapter on rapid reading. It's called Take the 5-Day Test. One of the things that we'll talk about tomorrow are some of the testing protocols. In other words, what have people done to demonstrate that photo reading is working for them? This is a very sort of contained experiment that will actually be done by the time you take off for whatever. And this is called Take the 5-Day Test. And what we'd really like to call it is Experiment for 5 days to see what photo reading can really do for you on one book. Now, this is